Right, so there we were, and just I know for myself, this is video number 3. But there we were, and chumming for the sharks. And we had 5 sharks around the boat, and PJ had his cage in the water, and he was having a ball of a time, and he was so excited. And I never went into the cage, so I wasn't interested in that, but we wanted to tag these sharks. So there were 5 sharks around the boat, and I had never seen 5 great white sharks on the boat, because when we hunted great white sharks, one would come up and we'd get a hook into that shark, and then all your focus and attention is on that animal. The most times I'd ever seen was 2 sharks on the boat, and it was just briefly with the submarine. If you remember the story when the submarine killed that shark. But we had 5 sharks on the boat, and two or three of them were probably about the same size, about 2.5 meters long. Then there was one that was a bit bigger, maybe 3 meters, and then there was quite a big one, which we called notch fin, and she was a solid 3.8 meters long, a big animal. And at first the small ones arrived at the boat, and they were coming in and feeding off the chunks of seal and the chunks of whale blubber that PJ was offering them. And then Notchman rocked up. And for the first time in my life, I noticed social hierarchy. I never knew that there was a social hierarchy in the great white shark population. And Leonard didn't know it either. And nor did Mike Boone. None of us knew this. And suddenly, Notchman came in, and as soon as Notchman came in, the other sharks would back off. So one of the smaller sharks would be at the boat, feeding on a bait, or coming in to feed on a bait, or trying to take a bait, and Notchman would come up, and that shark would scoot off. And Notchman was dominant. And we also saw it with the 3-meter shark. One of the smaller sharks, the 2.5-meter ones, would come in and feed, or would be around the back of the boat, and the 3-meter one would move in, and the smaller one would actually give it space. And Lennon and myself and Mike were discussing it, and we were saying, but you notice that there's a hierarchy here, and it's based on size. And when I go into great white sharks on the best behavior, this is going to come up again. And in any case, so we noticed that this was taking place. But this is White Shark Chronicles, so I'm not going to get into the science of it. So anyway, these sharks come around the boat, and Notchman comes up, and I slam a tag into Notchman. And Notchman is the first shark that the White Shark Research Unit ever tagged. And I have the honor, I had the honor of actually tagging that shark. So I was the first person to tag a great white shark, in a free-swimming great white shark specifically, in the Cape waters. And I think I was probably the first person along the entire South African coastline that tagged a free-swimming great white shark. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I do believe that is actually the fact. So it didn't affect Notchman. Put the tag in, I can't remember the tag number, it was a yellow, it was an ori tag, and then we had fashioned our own yellow kind of a feather tag on it with a number, and we tagged, and Notchman didn't really take any notice, and she swam around and she carried on doing her thing. But what happened after a while, and this is where it became really interesting, after a while, one of the small sharks, one of the 2.5-meter sharks, and I can't remember if it was a male or female. I don't think I was able to identify it as a male or female, because the 2.5-meter great white shark has still got very small claspers. So, and the clasper, they've got 2 claspers. So you've got the pelvic fins, and I've explained this. The female's got the pelvic fins, and then the male's got the pelvic fins plus the 2 claspers, or the penises. And when the sharks are very young, they're small. So it's often very difficult to see if it's a male or female. But this is where it got interesting. After a while, this one particular 2.5-meter shark started becoming confident, for want of a better term, confident, maybe a bit arrogant, I'm using terminology that us humans use. And this shark would come in and feed, and Notswin would go away. Notswin was just being selfish because Notswin would come in and feed a bit, and even if it didn't feed, it would just swim around. The other sharks would back off, and then she would disappear down the channel line. She'll do some what you call downstream circling, and she'd come back, and then she'd go down, and then as soon as one of the smaller sharks came to the boat, she'd be there immediately to chase it away. So she kind of claimed the boat as her territory or her property for the day. But this 2.5 meter great white shark started becoming disrespectful. That's a good word for it. Started becoming disrespectful to Notswin, and would come in and grab a bait, and Notswin would come, and the shark would ignore Notswin. And a couple of times Notswin would actually come right in and bump it or gape at the shark because they got these different behaviors. Again, I'll be talking about this stuff in Great White Sharks and their best behavior. But this shark was gaping at the small one, so Notswin was trying to chase it away. Notswin was posturing, doing everything it could to actually chase the shark away. Now you expect great white sharks would just go and bite each other, but they don't. And again, this is going to go into behavior. They don't do that because great white sharks know that they can inflict enormous damage in a very short space of time. And they're very selfish, that they've got a very strong personal space in because they don't want to get injured. They don't want to get some fatal wound or a wound that's going to take months or weeks to heal. But this shark just remained arrogant or disrespectful. And at one point, the smaller shark came in, and Notswin came up, and the shark ignored it, and Notswin actually bumped it, and then the shark swam away and did a big circle, probably circled about, say, 30 meters on the surface, kept on the surface, circled around slowly for about 30 meters. Notswin went down, disappeared under the water, and as that shark was coming back towards the boat, there was an explosion under it. And what happened, Notswin came up from the depths, just like Jaws, and just hit the smaller shark, the 2.5 meter shark, and hit the shark in the gut. Just hit it like that, actually lifted the shark out the water, the smaller shark, and started ripping it apart. And Notswin killed this other shark. Didn't feed on it, but Notswin eventually had enough. It actually warned the shark and probably got to a point where she got frustrated and decided that this shark was not paying due respect, was not remaining in the hierarchical ladder, and she went down and she came up and she attacked and killed this small shark. And she left it, she didn't feed on it, as I say, she let the shark go, and the shark started thrashing around on the surface and rolling around on the surface. It was sad, of course, very sad. But from a research perspective, and our first day on the water as a research group, it was exciting stuff. We were seeing stuff that we'd never seen before. And eventually the shark just sank away and went down. And Notswin, immediately after that, Notswin was calm, came back, swam around the boat. But then the other sharks really respected Notswin. And where they'd be feeding around the boat or hanging around the cage, and Notswin would swim in, they would wait for Notswin to get really close before they took off. But after she killed this other shark, as soon as Notswin started approaching the boat, the back of the boat, they would take off and they'd give her space. So, yeah, so that was our first research trip as the White Shark Research Unit. We went out to PJ van der Walt, who was the pioneer of great white shark diving, commercial great white shark diving, tourist diving in the country. And it was one incredible day. It was a fantastic day, and I'll never forget it. So that's the first of, well, not the first, we already spoke about the attack, but that's really the first of my White Shark Chronicle stories, and now we're going to get into the rest of them as we go along. Thank you.